you feel like you're doing a great job, right? Is that what you're saying?
We're doing our level best in a very...
What does that mean? What does that mean when a child is sitting in their own feces, can't take a shower? Come on, man.
It was a horrible thing the way he spoke to the head of Homeland Security the other day. These people are working hard. They're getting no support from the Democrats. The Democrats refuse to fix the loophole. They refuse to fix asylum. Those two things would make it 95% easier.
Well, President Trump says that's what started this whole tweet fest back and forth with Elijah Cummings and talking about Baltimore is that exchange that Cummings had with the acting head of the Department of Homeland Security about border security and border conditions. Let's bring in our panel. Guy Benson, political editor at townhall.com and the host of the Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio. Susan Ferriccio, chief congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and Josh Kraushaar, politics editor for National Journal. Okay, Guy, this is, again, as we've seen in multiple weekends, tweets over the weekend have kind of evolved into news stories that have lasted several days, and now all sides piping up.
Yeah, and the president admitted today, just straight up, that he doesn't necessarily have a strategy here, but one of his superpowers, Brett, is the ability to create an opposition that has these knee-jerk reactions reflexively to everything he does, including a lot of overreach. So we're not just talking about certain tweets anymore. We have presidential candidates, the top tier on the Democratic side, going to bat for, praising, singing hallelujahs about Al Sharpton, for example, and talking about what a wonderful hero he is for race relations in this country, which is really just an extraordinary thing given his toxic conduct over the years. Sharpton's, that is. So it seems like when Trump occasionally fires off a tweet or makes a statement, it might seem ill-advised or unproductive to many people, and sometimes it is, but in many of those same cases, his opposition proves time and again to be one of his greatest assets.
Susan, the president says he's just speaking facts. He doesn't have strategy, as Guy mentioned. Democrats and Republicans take different view. Take a listen to Dan Kildee and Tim Scott.
The president, I think, is bringing race to this conversation in a really destructive way, when what he ought to be thinking about is how he, as president, could deal with those constituencies of his.
There's no doubt that I don't find his tweets to have been racially motivated. I think we should take the high road and spend more time talking about how to deal with the failed policies of the left, frankly, major metropolitan areas throughout this country.
Well, what Tim Scott was saying, and the other part of his comments too, in that great interview, was that he talked about the president's accomplishments on behalf of people who have long been ignored, people at the lower end of earning income and minorities. He's talked about reforming the criminal justice system, helping the economy so that people who are earning so little can finally see a light at the end of the tunnel. Just policies that are working for people who the Democrats, frankly, were not able to help as effectively. And Trump's problem is when he gets in these Twitter wars and these big fights with the Democrats, and in this instance, he gives them this platform to accuse him of racism. No, he didn't bring up race when he was having that exchange with Cummings initially, but people accuse him of racism in part because he gives them the platform to do that, even if you can go back and forth on the argument whether you think it was racist or not. He steals away from his own accomplishments and changes the subject in a way that doesn't help him.
Well, not only that, there was this giant speech today, Josh, that he delivered in Jamestown, the site of the first legislative assembly in Virginia. In there, he talked about African Americans, the success of African Americans in this country. He talked about American exceptionalism. Take a brief listen.
From the first legislative assembly down to today, America has been the story of citizens who take ownership of their future and their control of their destiny. That is what self-rule is all about. Everyday Americans coming together to take action, to build, to create, to seize opportunities, to pursue the common good, and to never stop striving for greatness.
Now, we covered a little bit in the show earlier. If you read the speech, it's pretty great speech as far as speeches go for the president, but largely overshadowed by this back and forth about Baltimore.
Right, and also that speech was interrupted by a protester who happened to be a Democratic member of the Virginia House of Delegates who just screamed and interrupted the speech. And, it reminds you that Trump always seems to bring out the worst in his opponent. So when Trump plays to his base, when Trump tweets impulsively, you have Democrats reacting in a very extreme manner, as we saw in Jamestown today. But, from a political point of view, I don't think there's any grand strategy behind what Trump is doing. The one thing that unites Republicans and Democrats, by and large, is they would like to see the president tweet a little bit less and focus a little more on policy, focus more on talking about the economy. So I do think there may be a little bit of a method to what Trump's doing, but even he said today, there's no strategy. I just say what's on my mind, and maybe that'll help him politically, but I don't think this is part of any grand White House tactical game plan going on.
I mentioned it with Senator Scott earlier, and that's Bob Johnson's comments about the economy, specifically about minority communities, and I thought I'd just play it since I referenced it earlier. Take a listen.
I think the economy is doing absolutely great, and it's particularly reaching into populations that heretofore have had very bad problems in terms of jobs, unemployment, and the opportunities that come with full employment. So African American unemployment is at its lowest level. So I give the president a lot of credit for moving the economy in a positive direction that's benefiting a large number of Americans. We still have some issues to deal with the China trade negotiation issues, but overall, if you look at the U.S. economy, you got to give the president an A+ for that.
An A+ from the founder of BET. Panel will end it there.